Just one fruit will make orchids burst with flowers. They'll grow like crazy. Fertilizer made from the peels of this fruit is the #1 tonic for orchids. Banana peels, as we're talking about, are like the elixir of youth for orchids. When you eat bananas, you peel them, the peels you usually throw away. That's a big mistake. You can make use of banana peels, so don't throw them in the trash. Bananas and their peels contain many substances that orchids love. These include potassium, phosphorus, calcium, silicic acid, and sulfur. This makes orchids healthy, with beautiful green leaves and roots. Plenty of buds also appear on them. Simply prepare a simple fertilizer from them. But before you do that, wipe the orchid leaves with the peel. This alone will nourish the orchids. The leaves will shine. Now you can prepare the fertilizer. Cut the banana peels into smaller pieces. 1 or 2 banana peels are enough. Transfer the chopped peels to a jar. Pour in a liter of warm water and close the jar. Leave the jar for a day. The next day, strain the peels. You can now water the orchids with this water. Just feed the orchids like this once every 2 weeks. You'll forget about any problems in their cultivation. Water from banana peels is not only suitable for watering, you can also wipe the orchid leaves with it. It's a versatile fertilizer, most suitable for orchids. Give these leaves to orchids. They will make your orchids bloom all year round. You will be amazed by the beautiful, large flowers, the quantity of which will be hard to count. The flowers will appear one after another. You will also see plenty of new buds. They will continue to appear on the stems every day. There will also be a lot of new, healthy roots. The right fertilizer will not only strengthen the orchids, but also stimulate them to bloom. Regularly used, it will work wonders. You can make a simple but exceptional fertilizer from these leaves. These are bay leaves. Use about 10 of such leaves. Crush them and put them into a container. Add 3 tablespoons of rice. Pour half a liter of boiling water and close the container. Leave it for 2 or 3 hours. After this time, pour the mixture into a blender and blend. Strain the liquid through a sieve. Add 2.5 liters of water. Use this fertilizer to water the orchids. They will be healthier, stronger, and start to blossom. This fertilizer contains many minerals such as potassium, calcium, and magnesium. You can also use the fertilizer made from bay leaves and rice to wipe the leaves of orchids or spray them. Each of these methods will revive the orchid, making it grow beautifully and bloom. Sprinkle a handful over the orchid. This fertilizer will make it bloom abundantly. You can have beautifully flowering orchids at home if you provide them with the right supplements. I'll show you how to feed orchids. With this fertilizer, they will produce many new buds, be healthy and robust. New flower stems will appear, even on old stems. You'll learn 2 methods that I use to fertilize orchids with one product. Here's the first method. Pour about a cup of rice into a pan and turn on the stove. Heat it in a dry pan for about 3 minutes. It should be lightly toasted but not burned. When it cools a bit, transfer the rice to a blender. Grind the rice grains. Transfer the rice flour to a jar. You can store it this way and take the right amount for orchid fertilization. I take a tablespoon of ground rice and pour it into a bowl. Then, I pour boiling water over it, mix and leave it to cool. During this time, the water will absorb many minerals from the rice. You can also use ground rice with cold water. Pour water into a glass with a teaspoon of ground rice. Leave it for some time to let the water absorb the most valuable elements from the rice. You can water orchids with this water. Thanks to this fertilizer, the orchid strengthens. You can give at least 5 tablespoons to each pot. It's enough to do this once a month. The second method is traditional, using raw rice. Pour water over the rice and let it stand. You can use warm or cold water in this method. In the case of cold water, always leave the rice in the water for a longer time. Use this fertilizer regularly, especially when orchids have flower buds. This way, you'll have beautiful flowers. Just 1 teaspoon of this spice is enough for orchids to be covered in flowers. This trick is used by orchid growers. Thanks to it, their flowers bloom all year round. Yellow leaves and withered stems may be a sign of serious fungi. It turns out that garlic is the secret ingredient that works great as a fertilizer for orchids. It contains many minerals such as phosphorus, iron, and potassium. It also has antifungal and antibacterial properties, acting as a protective shield against insects and mites. Take 3 cloves of garlic and crush them. Then, pour a liter of water and leave it overnight. The next day, pour the mixture into the flower pot. After 30 minutes, pour off the excess fertilizer. Garlic water can also be poured into a sprayer and used to mist the leaves. The scent of garlic and its antifungal properties protect the plant from diseases and pests. For busy individuals, there's also a simple recipe with granulated garlic. Just add a teaspoon of the spice to a liter of water, then mix the solution and water your plants with it. And that's it. Garlic infusions serve not only as protection, but also support growth and blooming. Garlic acts as a nourishing agent. It contains active substances and nutrients. Simply fertilize the orchids with it at least once every 2 weeks to make them bloom again. It's the only fertilizer I use for my orchids. They literally bend under the weight of the flowers. Just 1 teaspoon is enough to stimulate orchids to bloom. The plant will bend under the weight of the flowers. Forget about watering them with plain tap water. This homemade fertilizer will work much better. Orchids are very finicky plants. Providing them with the right conditions for blooming is very demanding. It turns out that just 1 teaspoon of this powder mixed with water is enough for the plant to grow beautiful and healthy. Water the orchids only when their substrate becomes dry. It is generally accepted that this plant should receive a portion of water at intervals of a few days, but no less frequently than once every 2 weeks. Don't water them with plain tap water alone. Prepare a homemade mixture that will make them start blooming. Put a tablespoon of gelatin in a bowl, then pour warm water over it and stir until the powder dissolves. Gelatin is rich in nitrogen. It is thanks to it that plant roots become stronger and develop faster. In addition, regular nitrogen fertilizer feeding causes the plant to grow more vigorously and produce flowers more often. When the mixture becomes transparent, pour it into half a liter of cold water. Mix everything together. Water the orchids with this prepared mixture. Plants nourished with nitrogen develop new flowers faster. Thanks to fertilization, they will also delight our eyes for a longer time. This watering fertilizer is cheap, natural, and effective. It's worth using it at least once a week. Since I've known this recipe, my orchids have been blooming like crazy, and the flowers last on them for up to 9 months.